Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Thank you so much for coming back on time. And the next one is another visually compelling demo. And the presenter is Johnson Johnson. Go ahead, Ren.
Good afternoon. I'm going to apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm going to stay far from you guys. And hopefully I don't lose my voice. So I'm a principal research director in the education and scholarly communications team. And so half of me focuses on how do we transform education and work with the top researchers and think tanks around the world to think about things differently with technology. And then the other half of me concentrates on how do we grow women in computing and have more women computer scientists around the world. And so what I'm pleased is I think ChronoZoom does both of those worlds when we talk to you about it. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what is ChronoZoom and what are we trying to do here. It is a cloud-based service on Azure with an HTML5 front end. So it works on any type of device that supports an HTML5 browser. And then with that, I'll also have a call to action in the end to hopefully entice all of you to get involved in the ChronoZoom project. So with that, we all know that there are vast amounts of libraries, collections, digital repositories, vast amount of information on the internet. And when we work with professors and students and teachers around the world, they talk about the challenges and the endless hours they spend searching the internet, trying to find good quality information, trying to find all the types of information they need for their research investigations. And then for students, their frustration is they really don't understand how do you figure out if something's good quality or bad quality. What can be citable and what can't be citable. Wouldn't it be great to go into some place and know that everything here is high quality, peer-reviewed, and supported by the best researchers from around the world? Second, we know that there are a lot of experts around the world who have fantastic data, fantastic information, great PowerPoints, facts, figures, information. But if you're not a student in their course, you may not have the opportunity to ever see that data or have that opportunity to understand that information or recreate their research. And this is one of the professors we've worked with in the geology department at UC Berkeley. And you don't see, but on the side he has a shovel there to move his information. And he talks about, unfortunately, many colleagues are just like him where they haven't really gotten on the full bandwagon yet to really share everything and digitize everything and make everything available. The next thing we think about is when it comes to humanities and sciences. More and more universities are starting to collaborate more with each other. Education in high school is trying to connect the humanities and sciences, but still we really learn in silos. You know, I think about when I took a course in East Asian studies, and when I was learning about the 14th century, I learned about what happened in China. But I didn't learn what happened in Korea during the 14th century or Vietnam in the 14th century, or at the same time, what was happening in Latin America or Egypt, or what was happening from particles or health innovations, or what was happening from a scientific environmental perspective. And so one of the hypotheses we have is that if you could bring all that great research data and information and you bring the humanities with the sciences, will we start asking totally different questions? Could we have totally different insights? Because if you think about some of the greatest discoveries, it was because paleontologists, archaeologists, and anthropologists and humanities came together and started sharing information to make this new discovery. So if there could be a research tool to help have that happen, could this make things much better? And if we could think about, instead of having to search the information in the internet and pull it out piece by piece to look at different RSS feeds and different podcasts and different videos and schematics and data and ebooks and PowerPoints, wouldn't it be great if everything came to you in a dot, and that in that dot was the information from an expert who understands what's the best content in that area that kind of gave you a guide? And still, you need to look and research on your own, but there's a bibliography that kind of leads you to some of the best periodicals, best websites, best places to go for you to do deeper research. And that's the hope of ChronoZoom. So here we are at ChronoZoom, and when you get to ChronoZoom, you can really think about it as the history of everything. We start at 13.7 billion years ago, and then we go all the way to today. And you'll see these bright colors popping out at you. Those are called thresholds. And we can think of a threshold as a significant event during time where the world got more and more complex. There is a discipline called Big History that started about 25 years ago that tries to bring the history of everything together and really bridge the gap between humanities and sciences. And so they use this concept of thresholds. So we've brought that into this project. And so let's jump to the very first threshold. And this takes us to the Big Bang. And so here in the Big Bang, we have a video from one of the top historians, David Christian, talking about the Big Bang. And we can watch that video here. And this is a Vimeo video. At the same time, we understand that students like to multitask and they like to go and see other things. So we can look at the artifacts who are on the side. And this is a gigapixel image that we can zoom into great detail.
Of a billionth of a second after.
So we'll pause, David. In here we also have a Big Bang lecture that comes from Khan Academy. Lots of different content to look at from NASA and other places. And then what I was talking about before is the bibliography. And so if I click on the bibliography, not only does it give annotations of where this content is coming from, but then it also takes you to the best places to get deeper research. And in the future, we hope to have an integration with our Microsoft Academic Search, so then you can also search periodicals here too. And so if we jump out of the Big Bang, and now you're looking at all of history 13.7 billion years ago, we're going to jump to humanity, the last 3,000 years of written humanity. And what you'll see here is you'll see Earth in the solar systems, the last 4 billion years, and then you can see life. And then we go into, and you can't see at all pre-human history and humanity because they're a nanopixel, because they're so small, if you can then understand the scale of time. And so let's jump to humanity, where we'll fly at 2 billion years per second to get to the last 3,000 years. And so we're here in humanity, and I'll go into the Industrial Revolution. In here, once again, we're trying to now really bring the different worlds together. So now you see what's happening from Britain, United States, Western Europe, Russia, and Japan. Right now we have a team working on Korea, and then Latin America. And then you'll also see here we'll have scientific discoveries like the Watt steam engine. And so trying to bring the sciences and humanities together and different geographies. And so if we jump into 1776 and the Declaration of Independence, at the same time here, we also have the Declaration of Independence in full, so you can read the document, because many people haven't read the Declaration of Independence. They know that we were founded in 1776, but haven't read the document. And so as we jump out of the Industrial Revolution, we begin to get other insights. And so as I zoom out and look what else has happened in 1776, a lot of us know that the Watt steam engine was very, very critical in the Industrial Revolution. But how many of us really knew that the Watt steam engine, zoomed in the wrong thing there, was patented in 1776. Ah. So you shouldn't do a demo when you're sick. So let's zoom out. One of the other important things about ChronoZoom that we'll jump to is the importance of telling stories. So many of us know that the history of what we found is really from generation and generation to telling stories. But us ourselves stop telling stories. And so one of the things that we want to help with is at the same time, it's been very interesting for us to jump around here in ChronoZoom and discover things on our own. But sometimes you want somebody to talk through a timeline and tell you, what is it you're looking at? And why should you look at the information in there? And what order should you look at the information? And so we've created tours. And so in here, I want to show a brief tour from Cicely, who is a student at UC Berkeley. And we've asked her to think about World War II and what's important that we want to share across the world about World War II. And so she talked about Japanese internment. So let me show you her tour.
Hello, my name is Cecily. I'm a third-year psychology student at the University of California, Berkeley. This timeline is part of a project I've been working on for my big history class. Let me take you on a brief tour. The Japanese-American internment took place during World War II in the United States. The story of a married couple, Arthur and Estella Shigo, will be used to help understand internment.
And then everything's
Arthur,
written for the
a Japanese-American man, and Estelle, a European-American artist, lived in Los Angeles prior to internment. Though she didn't have to, Estelle chose to go with her husband to the camps. Our story begins after the United States entered World War II, when President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066.
So at any time, you can pause the tour and investigate the artifacts on the side at your own pace. Here, she referenced the executive order, and we have the executive order here that you can read in full. And then at any time, you can fast forward because you're getting bored and you want to see what else is there, and resume play.
The assembly centers were temporary locations where the Japanese Americans stayed before being moved to more permanent internment camps.
One of the things that's also important is one of the features professors and teachers asked us to have was in the tour to be able to turn narration on and off. Because, for example, there was a teacher here in the Lake Washington School District that said, the information you have here is great because the clothing request form that's right here is something that we used here in Seattle. And I could really utilize this information, but I want to tell a Washington story because we have a very rich history of Japanese internment and a lot of famous stories that have happened here. But I don't want to take the time to create a timeline. I'd love to use this information. So now he can utilize everything that's in here and play it almost like a PowerPoint presentation and give his own story. And then in the evening, he's sent an assignment to his students to listen to Cecily's tour and then do a comparative essay about the difference of how we treated the Japanese in Washington versus California. And what are the different interpretations from the story I told you versus the story you heard from Cicely. And because one of the important things with ChronoZoom is how do you deal with interpretations? How do you deal with disputes in dates? How do you deal with disputes and different views? And those are one of the things that we're working on. And what makes ChronoZoom as exciting is that it's a full community project. And what we mean by that is University of California at Berkeley, Dr. Walter Alvarez, this kind of was his baby invention with him and his student, takes care of all the content and works with discipline experts around the world to really make sure that it's high quality content and highly curated. And then we have a group of students at Moscow State University who do all the development that works with our engineers here at Microsoft Research. And then what we're trying to do is work with the scientific community and also the information sciences community to bring in all the data and then to help us think through how do you look at this. And so you'll see here at the very bottom, we say take our survey. And when you take the survey, it asks you, what do you think about this navigation versus this navigation? Here are the different ways we think of interpreting interpretations. And here's how we think about how do we show discrepancy in dates. And so then that way we want the academic community to give us feedback on how they want to see this information here. And so if we go back to ChronoZoom, I'll then jump in and show you a little bit about a life and the opportunities for the future. And one of the things that you'll see here and why we opened up the beta early, because you'll see that there's a lot of blank squares and not a lot of information in there. We did that on purpose because a lot of people have given feedback in the past that when you create a tool that is nearly to perfect and fully populated, that sometimes we don't believe that you'll really listen to our feedback. Sometimes the code is so complex, it's too hard for us to build upon. So what we've done is we've made this available, open sourced it early so that people can build upon it and that you feel that your voice is going to be heard and that we'll make the kind of suggestions that you want to make. And so if we leave the tour, and let's jump back to Earth. And here we'll start beginning to see the different disciplines and how different disciplines look at time in different scales. We'll see a geological time scale, archaeological time scale. And then in here in life is when you then begin to really bring in biology and paleontology in the same place. And so this is where Dr. Alvarez is very passionate because he helped discover the extinction of dinosaurs. And so he's working with fellow archaeologists and paleontologists to begin to build out a dinosaur timeline for folks. And so in here, we begin first with his famous lecture. And I'll just give you a little snippet of it. And we can go full
the Berkeley
screen.
theory was published in 1980, and for 10 years, people kept saying, well, where's the crater? And we frankly were embarrassed because they'd say, you predict a huge impact, where's the crater?
And so what's exciting about this is that think about, yes, there's lots of lecture videos on YouTube, but you need to know exactly what you're searching for. And you need to know who to search for and what's good quality. And so what we're trying to do in ChronoZoom is work with the top research experts around the world on significant events through history in the scientific domains and the humanities domains, and to be able to have their best lectures up there or start recording their lectures right now. So then that way students don't have to be students at UC Berkeley to have this opportunity, but students all over the world can have the opportunity. And then in here, Dr. Alvarez with his colleagues have picked the best fossils, the best images, the best things from NASA that they think will help you understand about the impact. And so what we're really excited about is getting a lot more partners to work with us, work with Berkeley, to really make ChronoZoom come to life. And so right now, a lot of what you've seen with the tours and with the timelines is first-party generated to give you an idea. The next stage in development that we're working with students and also other universities who are coming on board to want to work on this project in an open source environment, we'll be making a third-party authoring tool and third-party touring so that anybody can create their own tour and they can create their own timelines. And we kind of see ChronoZoom as in layers. So there's this one highly curated layer where it's peer-reviewed and that the top researchers around the world are saying if this is good quality or not, sending you annotations and saying what needs to be modified before that timeline gets populated. But then there's a ChronoZoom world that anybody can create whatever timeline they want, create any type of tour, because we've had lots of companies come to us interested that they want to put the timeline of their company. We've had educators that come and said, well, I want to create timelines for my class, but I don't want to have high quality content. I want to use copyrighted materials. Can you make this easier for me? And then they've also asked to have kind of a personal canvas because I want to use ChronoZoom for my research and I want to build everything out, but it's all quiet and I don't want people to know until I'm ready to tell the world and publish. And then we'll publish on ChronoZoom. And so those are kind of the future that's coming. And so what we wanted to do is show you ChronoZoom, have you investigate it, take it back to your students, talk about it, give us feedback, take the survey. And if you have content, data, information that you would like to test and work with us in ChronoZoom, I have my card. I'd love to work with you, and we'd work closely with you to make that come alive. And we've been surprised at how many people want to use ChronoZoom in different ways. For example, the World Health Organization is now working with us to create the World Health Innovations Timeline and be able to take, I guess there's 150 health innovations around the world that really made changes in medicine, and what they're looking at doing is if we can create exhibits on those, bring in the lectures, bring in the publications, bring in how do you look at the challenge and diagnose the issue, and here's how you solve it, that for developing worlds who don't have access to this information, since this can be on any device and it works on a phone, that they now can bridge the gap and be able to have good quality content to help emerging markets doctors. And so we're excited to try and test that and work with that with them. So with that, I have 2 minutes for questions before I need to end. Yes.
You wanted to add the space dimension. You are fundamentally organized along time. What would be a vision of navigating the space dimension and time dimension? So like Bing Maps and your Chrono put together.
Yes, we've been thinking about that, and it's great work that our Layerscape team and Worldwide Telescope has already done. And so we're looking at working with them later on in the development to see how do we bring these worlds together, and then also what does that look like. Right now in our first phase of development, we haven't tried to tackle that because it's pretty difficult. But that is one area that we're investigating in the future. Yes? Yes. So all of the data is, we do twofold. One, if it's connected to another resource library or in another location, we connect through the URL. And then for those who don't have a place or repository for their data, then it gets stored in Azure. And so what everything has to be is Creative Commons, or they're willing to, if it is private, but they're willing to give it to Creative Commons, then we post it. So we've had a lot of, for example, publishers who have come to us that want to give us content and want to use this, but we've said specifically it has to be Creative Commons and free to the public. And if you're wanting to charge, then that can be added in the bibliography. Yes? Yep. So you can look at it at a couple of phases. So this current phase is really for us to get feedback, and are we heading in the right direction, and is this intuitive enough? And so in this current phase, it's more of people to test it in their classrooms, use it in their current usage, but they can't add any content in it. The content is really first party, where you work with us in Berkeley to get it pulled in. And then in that, there is a panel of professors that are in each of the domains, Cosmos, Earth, and Life, that review the content to make sure that it's of the right quality. In the next phase of our development that will kick off in about 6 months, because we want to make sure we get enough feedback, we will then begin to create what we're calling a third-party tool, where then anyone could then put in their content, but then it goes through a review panel. And so as you put in your pieces, and it kind of walks you through as a very simple way of, here's how to label your content, here's how to put it in, here's your description, here's how you want them in the exhibits, that then the panel that's on the review board will review it, say, yes, this is great, or give you annotations, make this change, mix this change before it launches. The other big thing that we're trying to think through from a computer science perspective, and then also kind of a look and feel user experience perspective, is there's a lot of content already out there that is high quality. Like, we know that things in the Library of Congress we all agree is good quality that you'd want automatically in here. Content from CERN, for example, we'd want automatically to come in here. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we automatically pull information, and how should it look? Like, is each information come in as an artifact, or is it an exhibit, or how does it look? Those are all technical kind of user interfaces that we're looking in to try and figure out how to do. And so we're looking at kind of two forms of automated pull-in, and then also end user generated. Yes?
So that she doesn't have to repeat your questions here.
My understanding is Bill Gates owns a manuscript of Da Vinci. So how would he go about getting that added into presumably this wonderful timeline?
That's a great question, because Bill Gates just emailed us and said that he wants to make sure, because there's also a big history project that he's sponsoring that we work closely in collaboration with, kind of in a partnership, but they're focused on high school students only, and we want to look at kind of university also. And then he also has his own personal collection. So right now, once again in phases, we're in the first party phase where we can work directly with content providers to pull stuff in that we already know are high quality. And then in the next phase, so next year, we hope to have a third-party tool where people can more easily put in content themselves that get reviewed by a review board, and then it publishes. And then in this next phase, we'll also have the ChronoZoom world layer, that if you don't want it reviewed by the content board, but you just want to use the tool and populate it, and it kind of has the typical social networking stars and voting and those things, we have that.
And will that third-party tool be available for others? For instance, I might want to do my own timeline on, I don't know, the life of Brian or something.
Yes, exactly. That's
Okay,
the goal.
Thank you.
So we got to move on, and thanks again, Ray. That's a wonderful presentation.
So I'll leave my card here. Feel free to take it, and if you have content and you want to work with me, just send me an email.